Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wasallim. Nawaitu ta'alumu wa ta'alim wa tadhakkura wa tazkir wa naf'a wa intifa' wa nifadata wal istifadah wal hasa ala tamassuki bi kitabillahi wa sunnati rasulihi sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam wa du'a ila al-huda ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم إن نسألك علم لدني ومشرب السوف يذهني وهب يغني اللهم إن نسألك علم لدني ومشرب السوف يذهني وهب يغني اللهم إن نسألك علم لدني ومشرب السوف يذهني وهب يغني صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Amin. Right. From the book Muhammad, the Perfect Teacher, and Insight into His Teaching Methods by Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda. I may be benefited by him and by his knowledge in both abodes, right, to where he has said. So today, Alhamdulillah, we have finished the excellence in Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's character and methods. Right, so today we are going, his character and his entire being. So today we will start proper, right, the teaching methods of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and may Allah Subhanahu wa Taala reward Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda, right, the best and the highest of rewards for compiling for us, right, these 41 teaching methods from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Right, so we mentioned before, he's a muhaddis, right, that means somebody who is mastered the science of hadith in our time. In our time, not many people actually master the science of hadith, and he is one of the few who actually mastered the science of hadith. On top of that, he has written many books, and all of his books are based on hadith. Right, so he compiles hadith, he groups them up. Right, so here in this book, he has extracted every hadith that has to do with teaching methods of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Right, so we're gonna read the first one, right. So the introduction to the section. So he says Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used the most beautiful and best teaching methods. These had the greatest effects on the mind and the heart of his listener, and were always appropriate to the latter's level of understanding and intelligence. Moreover, his utterances were always lucid. Right, so he was always very clear, right, in the way he would teach the companions, and this was essential for Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right, to have, right, or to do, right, because his words will be brought till the end of time, right. So you see, we are already 1,440 years after Hijrah, right, of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That is a really long time if you sit down and you just reflect on this reality. Right, it's been 1,440 years after him. Right, if you were to sit in our time right now and were to imagine 1,440 years from now, right, you will think that's way into the future. Right, like really, it's so different from how we are right now. Or if you just imagine Singapore, 1,400 years ago, how was Singapore? Was there even people? What were people in Singapore? What are they doing? Right, Singapore's history doesn't even go back that far. Like and even Western history. Like you go into the medieval England, you go into those kind of cultures, they don't go back all the way to the 5th century, the 6th century, where Rasulullah lived. Right, so it's really, you see, we're very far away. When it comes to time, we're very far away from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Right, yet his teachings are as fresh, right, as the time when he said it to the companions, radiallahu anhum. Right, it is as fresh and as clear and as accurate as the time he said his teachings to his companions. And that is, of course, that is from the miracle of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It is the protection of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala on correct teachings. And the ulama, they do say, right, that a sign that a scholar's book is accepted by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has allowed for the book to be widespread and to last for generations. So, for example, the books of Imam Ghazali, his books are widespread, and it has lasted generations, and people are still teaching these books. So it's a sign that his books have received qabul from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Allah is the one that spreads it. All right. So here then he says, whoever studies and reads the books of the Sunnah in depth will see that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam resorted to various styles of teaching when speaking to his Sahaba. At times, he would speak as though he was asking a question. At times, he would answer the question. At times, he would answer the questioner according to the level of his question. At times, he would answer more than what a person had asked. At times, he would give an example to convey his meaning. At times, he would add an oath in Allah's name to his speech. At times, he would divert the questioner from his question because of his hidden wisdom in the matter. At times, he would teach by writing, drawing, or providing a simile. When necessary, he would be explicit. At other times, he would teach by allusion or insinuation. Sometimes, Rasulullah ﷺ would present a doubt in order to provide an answer to it. At times, he would resort to joking and debate in order to get his message across. He would also gently introduce a topic or use comparison as a teaching aid. At times, he would refer to the underlying reasons in order to provide an answer to a matter. At times, he would ask his Sahaba radiallahu anhum by questioning them on matters whose answers he already knew. At times, he would ask them in order to lead them to the point where they would arrive at the answer. At times, he would provide some information to them before they could ask any question. At times, he would dedicate some of his lessons to women and teach them whatever they needed to know. He took into account the condition of the children and the youth who were present and would come down to their level and teach them what was appropriate to their level of understanding. In addition to these, there are various other teaching methods used by Rasulullah which we will also come across, inshaAllah. In the following pages, I will quote many examples of the above mentioned techniques and others who are presenting the teaching methods of Rasulullah as compiled in the books of the pure Sunnah, the Hadith. My inspiration is solely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I place my trust in Him and turn to Him. So the whole thing I didn't explain because he's going to go into it. So if each method of teaching, I will explain further as to what, inshallah, is meant and what we can derive our lessons from these things. So you see, he just went through the entire book in one paragraph. Basically, when all the time he said at times. This is basically the entire book. The entire book is going to speak about the different methods used at different times by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the first thing we learn from this section before we actually go into the entire topic is that teaching is not a one method situation. It is not a one size fits all. It is not. Which is why sometimes, a lot of times, public schooling does not work. To be frank, it does not work. Right? Because every child is different. Every person is different. They're all different. So it is good enough to give a mass lecture, right? To deliver information, and Islam does have that in our education. You have khutbah. Khutbah is a mass lecture, right? For whoever comes, here's the khutbah. So school is good for khutbah. In the sense where you give a mass lecture on a topic, right? On science, mathematics, it was a mass lecture, right? But there needs to be, right, where in Islam we will call halakha. There needs to be halakha of circles of knowledge whereby the teacher knows the students who are involved. It's a small circle, and she really gets to see the faces and see what are they getting, what they're not getting. Right? So the thing about and I'm not against this kind of education. It has its benefits. Allah knows best. And we all are products of it. I'm a product of the public education. We're all products of public education. But of course, I cannot deny that at home I had my mother. At home I had one-on-one. I had personalized education. Right? And it is, if you look at every person who has succeeded, right, they will have someone in their life who was the main influence. Right? They had a direct contact with a teacher somewhere. Right? So they can't just go through the whole of education, mass the entire time. There has to be specified education, which is why you see, and it's interesting that I find it very interesting that in Singapore education, when you're in JC or in poly or university, you have tutorial classes. Tutorial. Right? Which is a good idea. Because basically in JC, you go for a mass lecture, right? And it's like the entire cohort, for example, doing one subject. A teacher says in front and lectures, right? Then everybody has a tutorial classes. So the tutorial class is about 20 students, for example. And from there, the teacher does questions, right, and is able to troubleshoot what's the problem, right? That's what happens in JC. Why is it in primary school and secondary school, where children are less matured, more playful, can't focus in class, it's mess all the time? Unless you have remedial. Remedial, then you have personalized attention. But most of the time, at primary school, 40 students. Secondary school, 40 students. Right? But JC is a school. JC has tutorial. University is a school. University has tutorial. You know this, university, the classes that I really benefited from are the 12 people in a class kind of classes, or 10 people in a class. In poly also you have tutorials. Like as you grow older, for some reason, there's tutorials going on. But when in primary school, secondary school, it's just mess the entire time. That's why there's tuition now. Because they find there's a need.
But they have already picked out
the weak ones.
The better ones to go to other better schools. So the math ones just gonna leave them alone like that. And then as time goes by, they will still pick a few.
But the thing is that why can't the same system in JC be applied in not math lecture, still classroom, right? But then they break down into smaller groups in JC. We do break down in smaller groups in JC, right? But in secondary school you don't. Secondary school, if you're lost, you're lost, right? If you're lost, you don't have a tutorial class to actually go to. Unless you are thick-skinned enough to go up to your teacher and ask the teacher herself, which most students don't do. They just resort to tuition, right? But tuition shows the need for individualized small groups, right? That's why that's the only plus factor about tuition that it has over school, because you will say school and tuition same thing. It's the same except that for tuition, small group. 1-on-1, 1-on-2, 1-on-3. Right? For me, my tuition maximum I take 4. I won't do more than 4. I don't believe in tuition being more than 4. For me personally, right? Because I feel that then you're just going for another school. It defeats the point, right? So for me, like I will do maximum 3 or at most 4 if they're all in the same school. For example, that I can actually, but I can still do individualized, focus like on each student. And so you see in Rasulullah's method, right? This is what's going on. You have a mass lecture, right, whereby you have your lecture, you have your khutbah, and then you have halakha, right, halakha style, small groups. I always wonder, like, how come as you grow older, you have tutorials, but when the younger age, it's all mass. Because 40 is considered mass, 40 is the minimum for khutbah, right, in Islam. Right, so 40 in one class in our schooling system is considered mass lecture. It's not individualized at all. It's like in primary school, you have those who are left out, right, in the sense because they can't focus or whatsoever. Right, so and
It's not a kid's fault then.
They're children. Yeah. So I mean, if they really want to troubleshoot what the situation is about, and some of our people are saying, make school longer. That's not the solution. The solution is have more teachers. That's the solution. The solution is to have to like they call it TA, teacher's assistant, right? Whereas even in Mendaki tuition, my husband was saying, if a class has 10, right, they will have a TA, right? And usually a TA is supposed to assist the teacher, but most teachers will just prefer 5-5. I take 5, I take 5, right? And then they find it even more effective. So basically, that's the problem lah. The problem is basically making it mass, right? That small children cannot focus in a mess situation. Right, so Halakha style is a method that has been in Islam for very long time of Rasulullah, before that in the prophets. Right, Halakha system there is a secret in Halakha system. Right, even for juz classes, right, it's actually best, right, if it's like this, whereby you can ask your questions easily, you can interact with the teacher, right, and then whatever you don't understand, you can put forth. Right.
Is the maximum number for
Halakha? Of course, there's no maximum number, but of course, the more you have, right, the harder it gets to actually. So the more you have, it will eventually turn into a lecture. It becomes a mess, yeah, which is not negative. I say you can have lectures, but it will turn into a lecture style. Right, it's no longer halakha, right? So and the teacher can't even control it also. So let's say I kept teaching and people begin to come, right? And a lot they're coming. I myself will notice my teaching style changes. Like I will naturally go into a lecture. I won't do it as halakha method. I will actually naturally go into lecture style. And if you have noticed, when I have a big audience, you will notice that my way is different as when it's a small group, right? It's just the feel of it. And the feel of it is different, therefore you deliver differently. Right? So Allahu Alam. Alright. So this entire first part, he speaks about the different methods of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So lecture is one method, right? Halakha is one method, right? Small groups are one method, right? Good education requires both, right? Requires both, right? Mass lecture, and it requires also individualized attention, right, to the students, right? And that's what the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam got. All right. And then here he mentions a lot of methods. We just read through like all the different methods. We'll go through them one by one in this book. So we're going on to the first method, right, of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the methods they vary from the way he speaks, from the way he delivers, from his physical methods, from drawing diagrams, from giving similes, parables, right? All of this come in with the method of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I really hope as we go on from here that you all are making charts. Yeah, charts. Because the 40 methods, if you can make it into 41 methods, if you're making into entire chart, right, for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so you can see the different methods, and if you can group them up, even better, right? Group up like the ones that are verbal, the ones that are physical, the ones that are more of diagram, right? The ones so where he uses examples, where he goes, because you see here in the examples that he gave that he will specify the answer to the questioner. So when the questioner asks the question, he will look at the state of the questioner, and he will give his answer with respect to that. And that can even be extrapolated to mathematics and science. For me and for my students, if I can see that the student is very weak in this subject, my answer, ask for advice, what should I do to make myself better? My answer will be different as compared to a student whom I know can handle more. Because it means you don't give a blanket advice to everybody, right? But you actually look at how they are handling it, how they learn, right? How they are, and you give your advice in accordance to what you know of your student. Alright, so the first method that we see here.
So you're saying that there should be 41 charts, or based on then?
No, one chart.
One chart for these 41 methods.
Yeah. Right? But there are many hadiths, I have more than 100 that he quoted here. Okay? Right, so you can group them up. Okay? Alright. So the first method of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 40 methods, not 41, 40 methods. Alright, the first method, teaching by his beautiful way of life and sublime character. Right, this first method that we see was the last thing that Habib Omar spoke about in the book that we took before this book, right, in these classes, right, on education, right. Inshallah, see how these classes, right, is basically called Education in Islam. We're going to go from book to book to book on education. All right. So after this class, this book, I have another book in mind, and they can go on into. Right. So it's going to be basically an entire course in education in Islam. We began with Maqasid Halaqat, like Habib Omar's book. Right, that book ended off by pointing to us that the most important thing in a teacher is her character. Right, that is more important than anything else. Even her knowledge is not as important as her character. Right, the character of a teacher. We ended off Maqasid Halaqat. You remember? Maqasid Halaqat at the end, Habib Omar gives a full description of what a teacher is in her character. Right, so her akhlaq is the most important thing about her as a teacher. So here the first thing that the Shaykh speaks about, because this book is following up from that book. So this book, the first thing it speaks about is the beautiful way of life and sublime character of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you want to be a true teacher, you need to have refined character, right? Because the students, right, they will take from your character, and no matter what subject you teach, right, you would always be teaching character. And character is something that Rasulullah came with. And he said that Banyaklah story. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. All right. So one of the most important, greatest, and obvious teaching method of Rasulullah SAW was to teach by his actions, his beautiful way of life, and his sublime character. Okay, so I was saying that every teacher teaches character. Even if you're a math teacher, you're a science teacher, you are a geography teacher, whatever, a language teacher, you teach character. You do. No matter, even if you don't want to, you do. Right? So, and that is the thing about it. If you're a parent, definitely you're teaching character. You are definitely teaching character. Right? It's not something that you can even control. Right? So, and character meaning is good or bad. Right? There's two types of character, good or bad, and you're teaching it. Right? So, this is why the first thing that he will highlight is character. Right? And Habib Omar, the last thing he mentioned in his book is that after all that he has said, right, the most important thing is character. You need to guard your tongue, guard your speech, guard your emotions, guard your... Everything has to be guarded over if you really want your students to learn from you. Right? Because a teacher can be very knowledgeable, highly knowledgeable, but if she has bad character, two things can happen. Right? One thing is that the students learn her bad character and they emulate after her. That's one thing. The other thing is that the students are put off by her bad character and they are unable to benefit from her, which happens a lot. Right? If a teacher has bad character and calls people names or whatsoever, right, the students block. Then when they come into class, they block. They don't want to hear, they don't want to listen. Even if she's the best teacher or even if she's the most knowledgeable, whatsoever, because they don't like her. They just hate her because of her bad character. So two things can happen. Either they pick up her foul character, or they block her off. Then thereafter she becomes a useless teacher. Right? So with good character, the opposite happens. Right? They learn your good character, inshallah, your good speech, your good expressions, right? Your good body language, your smiling, your how you take care of those around you, and they begin to love you. When they begin to love you because of your good character, they will want to come to your class and listen to you no matter what. Right? Yeah, that's a topic. They will just keep coming. Right? So that is a key. That's a key. Right? And Rasulullah, of course, he perfected that. So one thing, the Sahaba observed his character and they took on his character exactly as how he was, right? And they're all called the graduates of the school of Muhammad. If you read in Arabic books, right, they will say, Sayyidina Fatima, the way how refined she was, and they will say, of course she is. She is a graduate from the school of Muhammad, And then she married another graduate, Sayyidina Ali, who was also a graduate from the school of Muhammad, right? So that's why they came together in union, right? And they brought up children, right, who are of the best of Zuriyat, of the descendants of Rasulullah SAW, Sayyidina Hassan, Sayyidina Hussein. Right? So in all the Sahaba, right, they were whenever they showed excellent character after the life of Rasulullah SAW, after the death of Rasulullah, right, the scholars were always right there saying that, of course, Sayyidina Aisha was that way. She was a graduate of the school of Muhammad. Of course, so you see, as a person is known by the school that he comes from. Right? The Sahaba, they were known by the school they came from because all of them were the same. Right, in the excellence in their character. That was something that was consistent throughout the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we mentioned that the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is one of the mu'ajizah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Sahaba themselves. I mentioned before. Right, they themselves were a miracle. Right, because from what they were before Islam to what they became after the coming of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like this is no human being could have done that. Right, to a community of people who were barbarians. Literally, they were barbarians. Right? They were unrefined. There was no government over them. There was no king over them. It was the rich and the powerful rule. It was oppression all the way around. Right? It was full of plundering and lying and cheating and zina and whatsoever. That was the society that some came to. Right? It's like the rich rule, basically, the powerful rule, and you poor people, you get stepped on. He came and he completely transformed these people to be the most refined human beings to have ever existed in the history of mankind. Right? That's why the ulama say the Sahaba, they are they are a testimony to the prophethood of Rasulullah. Because no human being in the history of mankind has ever done what he has done. But you transform an entire group of entire race of people, right, into the best of human beings, when they were actually the worst of human beings. In fact, they were not a threat. They were never a threat to the Persians and to the Romans, right, because they were just barbarians fighting each other. So the Persians and the Romans, you see the empires at Iran, at Iraq and Iran, and at Syria, Jordan, right? Their empires stopped short of the Arabian Peninsula. Why? Because when they came to the peninsula, they're like, this is desert, barbarians. Don't have to bother with them. Let's just not get involved with their issues. So they stopped short their empire there. No one bothered to conquer the Arabian Peninsula because there was no resources. And the people there are barbarians. So they're like, you know what, we don't want to get involved with them. Right, so they stopped short their empire there. Right, so when the Arabs always saw the Persians and the Romans as like, wow, like the great empires of their time. And they are even greater empires than any empire we have seen today in our modern day. Right, they were greater. So when Rasulullah said to them, and it's a form of teaching also from Rasulullah, when at the Battle of Khandaq, at the Battle of the Trench, when Rasulullah saw some, and then Habib mentioned this during his khutbah, if you will. It was not recited lah, but it was in the khutbah. And he mentioned about this in the khutbah. He said that you see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they came to a hard rock, they were digging the trench, right? And the thing about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was that, and I'll get into the story when I go into the seerah. Right? I'll get into it very, very. I'll go deep into the story about the trench. Basically, when they were going to dig the trench, right, for the third major war in Islam, right, he drew a line, right? He said the trench is going to be from here up till here, right? He drew a line where the trench will be, right? So and then he divided the parts of the trench into different parts. Every group of Sahaba handles a part, right? So he will distribute according to the different tribes, right, that they were there, right? They were distributed. So they all began work. So everybody work on your part. So it's not like they all work on the same place, but it was distributed throughout the width of the trench. So then the Sahaba, they were digging and they came to a very hard rock. Like it was so hard, like it was like to be like cement like that. It was so they hit it so many times they couldn't break the rock. So they can't. It's a huge area, so they can't dig past that because it's huge and it's hard. And Habib was saying that this rock was actually very near the line, but the Sahaba had so much adab for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they didn't even think to just move the line around the rock. Because you see, if this is the trench supposed to be this width, if the rock was here, right, you could just dig around, right, and then just move it, just basically move the line a bit front, instead of forcing to break the rock. Right, you can actually go around it, and you can dig in front. So Habib was saying that the Sahaba had so much adab with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they did not even suggest to do that, because Rasulullah drew the line. It's going to be dug here, it's going to be dug here. We're not even going to move a trench forward even a bit. It can't be moved forward. They refuse to. Right? And you must dig there because some drew the line there. That's the first thing, adab with teacher. Right? The leader, the commander has said, dig there, dig there. And because, you see, every miracle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would come after a good behavior from the Sahaba. If you look throughout the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, a miracle would come after the Sahaba exhibit good behavior, right, or good adab with their Shaykh, if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You will always see it everywhere in the seerah, right? The miracle will always come after someone did something good, right? And then Rasulullah will show a miracle, right? As if it's like Allah's gift for them. You know how you respected your Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah gifted them with a miracle. So they couldn't break it. Right, and then they were like, we don't know what to do with this rock. It's too hard. So they went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, Rasulullah, we don't know what to do with the rock. Right, so Rasulullah came to this huge rock, right, and he struck it. Right, and whenever he struck it, right, the first time he struck it, right, the part whereby he struck, it collapsed into dust. Right, from a hard rock, it became like sand. Right, by one strike from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when he struck it with one strike, it became like sand. And there was like a lightning that came out, like a spark that came out, right, to the horizon. Right? And then he looked and he said, I can see, right, the keys of Persia has just been given to me. Right? And then he hit it again. Right? And then he saw another spark came out. The keys of Rome has been given to me. Then another spark, he hit again, and the spark came out, and he points, the keys of Sana'a in Yemen has been given to me, meaning that we Muslims will conquer all these lands. So according to the Sahaba, this is amazing to even think about, because they won't even go near these lands. And these are like the king of Persia and the king of Rome. Are you? Us, we are the desert people. No one cares about us. Like, we would never dream of going near these people. So Sahabas, they were amazed. Of course, they know what Rasulullah says is true. Right? But again, the ulama say this is the way by Rasulullah is giving them, is pushing their semangat. And that means semangat, their enthusiasm or their zeal. Their zeal, their enthusiasm, or their belief in themselves, their aspiration, confidence. Right? So by saying to them, you will reach the lands of Rome, and not only will you reach it, you will conquer it. It means it will be under your rule, the Muslim rule. Lands, not only Rome, Persia, Yemen, you will get all of these lands. Right? And here, during the story of the Khandaq, the Munafiqun, right, they began to laugh actually. They began to laugh and they say, you see this prophet of theirs? Right? Right now, they are building a trench to protect Medina from an external army. They can't even go out and fight because they're so small. And here he is saying that they're going to reach Roman and Persia, and they're going to reach Yemen. They can't even protect Medina. Right? So, this is the Munafiq, not the Jew, the Munafiq. Right? So the Munafiqun were talking like this. Right? But according to the Sahaba, right, they understood that, of course, the words of Rasulullah is true, and that actually spurred them on. It spurred them on to dig even more, because they know the words of Rasulullah will be true. Right? And that is actually one of the methods of teaching, right? To give them encouragement by telling them, of course we can't tell the future, right? But we can tell them, if you do this, right, you will get this, inshallah. Right? And that's how Rasulullah also, he prepared them for Badr. For Badr, he would take every Sahaba and he would say, you will kill so and so at this spot. That you will kill so and so at this spot. He will spell out everything. And this is a way by which you spur them on. Right? It's a teaching method. Right? It's a way by which you give them confidence in themselves. Right? So you say, I see you, in this school, that kind of thing. I see you, getting these results. I see you. I see you memorizing the Quran. Where will I see you as a memorizer of the Quran? Where will I see you as somebody who acts, on the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Where will I see you as, so in the sense that he will say things, right, to the Sahaba, right, and then they will fulfill the prophecy of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right. Okay, so that is one thing about him teaching by his way and by his way of life and subject character. So when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam issued an order, he would first carry it out himself, and the people would thereafter emulate him and execute what they had seen him perform. His character was the Quran. He was thus on a very elevated pedestal of character. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him a beautiful example to his servants. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, for surely, there is for you in the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam a beautiful example for he who hopes to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and believes in the last day. This is the ayat you're asking me about. It's right here. Okay? Means Allah and believes in the last day. Right? And remembers Allah abundantly. Right, Sarah? Okay, this is the ayat. This is the ayat you're asking about this morning. Alright. So here, first and foremost, when we speak about beautiful character, right, beautiful character is character that. So how does somebody define what is beautiful character? And how do we understand what is beautiful character? Beautiful character is simply whatever the Quran says is beautiful character. So whatever Allah says that He loves in the Quran, that is beautiful character. Whatever Allah says He loves, that's it. Right? So you don't have to go more than what the Quran actually says. And may Allah reward our scholars the best of rewards, because they have collected for us all from the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah of what is beautiful character. Right? Habib Muhammad Al-Haddar has a book, right, about beautiful character. Habib Omar has books on beautiful character. right? Many of the scholars have collected, and it's all translated in English. It is all translated in English. I have mine. I can show you all one. Whereby you can learn all these books, of beautiful character. And in fact, that was the book I'm thinking about. That after this book, we go into the book speaking about character. What is character? Right? And we learn a book about character. Okay.
What is it called, the normal character?
He has a few. It's not just one book. They have a few books about character, right? And this is why it is said that in our ummah, it's not something that is focused on. People don't focus on character anymore. Right? Rather, we live in a time where people like to, they call it, in Arabic they call it yuzakki anfusakum. Right? That means like you purify yourself in a way. Like it says that in a way in Arabic, it says they don't purify themselves, they sanctify themselves. Sanctify. It's a difference, eh? When you sanctify yourself, that means you make yourself feel good about yourself. You don't want to see any faults. You only see what's right. You're always good. You're a good person. You're this, you're that. That's called sanctifying the self. Right? That is blameworthy in Islam. You're not supposed to go around sanctifying yourself. Right? You're supposed to go around blaming yourself. Right? So that you can improve yourself. If you're always sanctifying yourself, then how are you going to improve? In a way. I mean, you don't like so in a way in Islam, right, it's always about learning what is perfect character, looking at Rasulullah and looking at yourself and see where you fall short. And wherever you fall short, you improve. But you don't say to yourself, oh, it's okay to be that way. It's okay to be like that. It's okay to be, you're human. It's okay. We never say that to that's why to err is human. Of course, it is true. It is true to err is human. But then to improve is Muslim, inshallah. To try, this is the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We don't sit down and bask in our in our faults. Right, this is not the way. And for what? The Quran. Like for what? The Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you're going to sit there and you're going to bask in your faults and say, oh, I'm faulty, but it's normal, it's okay, I'm going to stay faulty. Right? No, but we try our best to improve in our character. That's why the ulama focus on the study of character. Character is to be studied. If you want to have character, you study character, right? And then you emulate the character of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So right here, the first thing he says, right, is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his character was the Quran. Right? So a person who does not study the Quran, right, you will not know what is good character, because good character is the Quran. You must study the Quran and you must learn what is said in the Quran of good character. And the ulama have done all the work for us. The scholars have done all the work for us. In fact, I feel like taking my book now to show you all. Should I take my book? Okay, take my book, Take my book. No, my husband might be in there. Alright, let me just get the book. Because I feel like just showing you what there's a lot I can do right now.
Sanctifying yourself.
the right to the center. So bite to the center, 2 bites. And then he flips the watermelon. And then he bites again. Yeah. 3 times.
Bite, and flip. Bite, and
Yeah, must be lah.
or if it's a small one, then just bite. Make small bites.
Yeah.
But the kurma part, cool, right?
I eat one, like we tell me they eat on a daily basis.
The kids,
The kids, yeah, and then can teach them.
Right, sorry, you eat it. You know it?
I'm sure she does, yeah. So you see the Hawaii book.
But did they put the whole kurma in their mouth, or they eat the leaves? I should be drunk with this one. I don't know. So you must put batch the seed.
Yeah, but then buang.
Hey, I don't.
Was it?
Oh my God, ask Hafi. Hafi remove the kurma.
Yeah.
Rasulallah. But how does he eat the kurma?
Salam.
Because of what is small.
Why?
Could you?
Actually, it's not exactly the book that I wanted, but I think my husband took the other book. My husband, I think he took the other book. One is Mahada's book, Beneficial Counsels. It has quite a bit of character speech inside here. Mahada's Al-Wasaya Al-Nafi'ah. Beneficial Counsel, Imam Al-Haddad. If yes. There is another book that by Imam Al-Haddad. Habib Umar has, right, Pursuit of Noble Character. Habib Muhammad Haddar has, Pursuit of Noble Character also. These are the main people. Imam Ghazali, of course. Imam Ghazali, his entire Ihya, there's a section about purifying the self. Right, so all of these books, there's another one book that my husband, I don't know where he put it. Either he took it or I don't know where he put it. Right, so there's another book also that I really like, right, that speak about noble character. Right, so it is, while we sit here, see a lot of people that ask, how do I teach good character or how do I attain good character? The first step to teaching good character the first step to teaching good character is to have good character. Right, so how do I have good character? Right, the first step, right, is to read books about good character. Read first. Right, because as you read books about good character, you are, in a sense, you are brainwashing yourself. You're brainwashing really in a good sense. You're washing out whatever you have learned from society that is blameworthy. And you're filling your mind and your heart with whatever that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, that is of His, those who are believed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of His awliya, of His saints. Right? So that's why when you read all of these books a lot, right, it will have an effect on you. It will. Like if people and books and company, they have a lot of effect on you. Right? So books really affect. Right? Books really affect a person. Right? So the best is really you keep the company of the righteous. You can't find time to go and keep the company of righteous, right? Or you don't know who to keep company of. Then the books. Right? Keeping the company of these books is equals to keeping the company of the righteous. Right? That is what we understand. Because of course you can't see Imam Al-Haddad anymore, but you can see with his books. Because sitting with him is sitting with his books. Because his books will be what he will say. So when you see Imam Al-Haddad, he will speak about what he wrote right, in his books. Right? So keeping his books company is keeping him company, Imam Al-Haddad. Which is why the reverse is also true. Right? To read the books or to watch the videos or to watch things of people of bad behavior, bad character and of sin, right, is to keep their company. Because your mind will, and it happens very quickly. Right? If you say, for example, you do an experiment, don't do it, but if you do an experiment, right, and you start watching every day, right, movies that has foul language. Just if you start doing this, right, if you watch every day movies foul language, soon you will begin to think in foul language. You will begin to. right? If every day you do this, so every day you watch things in foul language, you yourself will begin to think in foul language, and you might even utter when you're upset, or you will even get angsty quickly. You get angry quickly because you're watching a lot of anger. Right? So you begin to, because you're always watching people, blow up, scream, shout, throw tantrum. So you begin to do it. You see it happen in kids very obviously. Right? Very obviously happens in kids. When they see a lot of this kind of behavior, they begin to copy without realizing. Right? And even adults do so. Right? So on the other hand, if you read books or you watch stuff, there are people who are calm. Right? They have perfect, beautiful speech. Right? They are refined in their way. And you begin to emulate. So the best thing is really, if you want to improve your character, you pick up books. Right? Either like this, write out advice to you on good character, or you read the lives of the pious, of the righteous. Read about their lives. Right? Read about the awliya, about the prophets. Right? Read about how they are, stories. Right? Then you will learn good character. All right. So the first thing about good character is that whatever he ordered, he will do it himself first. Right? And we mentioned this story of Imam Abu Hanifa last week, right? Whereby somebody asked him, I mentioned in one of my classes, I can't remember which class it was, right? But I think it was last week. And by Imam Abu Hanifa, someone came to him and said, can you say in your khutbah, right, to free the slaves? I mean, can you put it in your Friday khutbah? Can you put in your Friday khutbah the importance or the reward for the one who frees a slave? So some of the slaves came up to Imam Abu Hanifa and said, "Oh Imam, can you just put this advice in your khutbah to the people about the importance and the beauty of freeing slaves?" Right. So the Imam said, "Okay, I will do so." A few weeks passed, he did not do it in his khutbah. Eventually, he did a khutbah whereby he collected all the hadith and the Quran about the virtues of freeing slaves. And on that day, that Friday, whereby he gave that khutbah, thereafter, so many people freed their slaves. Right, in the time of Imam Abu Hanifa. So the slaves were very happy that they were all freed from slavery. So Imam Abu Hanifa, so the slaves went to him and said, "Oh Imam, thank you so much for doing the khutbah. We really owe it to you. Because of you, we are all now free." And then they said to him, "But we just have one question. We asked this favor of you weeks ago, right? And why is it that only now you did a khutbah? Like, why didn't you do it earlier?" Right? And the Imam said, "Well, when you asked me to give the khutbah, I myself have never freed a slave because I never owned a slave. So I had to spend a few weeks to save up money so I could buy a slave and free him. Then I can tell the people to free their slaves. Like, I don't want to say something that I myself have never done. But he has never done it because he didn't have the money to do it." So he actually went to save money so he could just buy a slave and free him. Then he can advise the people. This is how the ulama of the past, they made sure they would, whatever they're going to advise, they have done it themselves. They would never do something like they themselves doing it first. And that is from the akhlaq of Rasulullah. Rasulullah, he will be the first to do these things, then he will instruct the Sahabas on it. There was nothing that he instructed that he himself did not do. And in fact, he would do it to the best of levels. The highest, the most excellent level would be Rasulullah, and then he would tell the Sahaba and they would do it after him. That is of the first sign of good character. So if you want to teach good character to your children or to your students, you have to first have it. You have to be first, control your tongue. You have to be first to control your anger. You have to be first to smile, right? To be good, to be kind, to speak with good words. You have to be the first one to do so. You cannot, be instructing them, right? And then your character say something otherwise. Right? And of course, there are sayings whereby character is taught, right, by example. That's the only way you teach character. It is taught by example. If there's no example, no matter what your tongue says to them, they will see your hal, they will see your state. Right? And the Arabs have a saying, "Lisanul hal afsahu min lisanil maqal," right? Which means the lisan of the hal, the tongue of the state, is more eloquent than the tongue of speech. Right? That's what that means. That's what that means. The tongue of your state is more eloquent than the tongue of your speech. of your state, hal.
Your character, your
It's more eloquent than the tongue of your speech. لسان الحال أفصح من لسان المقال. Huh? Don't spoil the quote. Yeah, basically it means action speaks louder than words. Right, lisanul hal. It's not a real tongue. Lisanul hal afsahu min lisanil maqal. Right, it's the tongue of your state. That means your state speaks more eloquently than your mouth. Right. So they will.
If your state is eloquent.
No. More eloquently means clear, more clearly.
Clearly.
It's more clear from your state than from your tongue. So if your state and your tongue are contradicting, your state will be looked at more by your students and by your children than your tongue. They will not hear your tongue. They will just hear your state. Because it's more eloquent, it's clear. It's more clear your state than your tongue. So they will see your state. And they hear it more than they hear your tongue. So while you can go around saying to them, be polite, don't lie, right, speak well to each other, they hear your state more. Right? If they see you lying, they see you bad character, they see you raising your voice, right? And the ulama, they do say that a person, a woman who raises her voice against her husband, for sure, without any doubt, her kids will raise their voice to her. They do say that. Right? That that's what I've learned. Right? If you raise your voice towards your husband, for sure, without any doubt, your kids will do the same to you. They will. They will do the same to you. Right? If you're rude to your husband, they will be rude to you. Right? If you are. So it's ready, it will come back. It will come back to her. Right? So
vice versa, right? If the husband is rude to the wife, the kids will be rude to the husband.
if the husband is.
If the husband is rude to the wife, or the husband raises his voice to the wife, the kids will raise their voice to the husband.
Yeah. They will do it the same way. They'll do it the same way. But you don't have to say it. Because I'm speaking to women. This time I'm supposing a woman. Right. Just like Habib also mentioned before, when you speak to a people, you speak to them for them. So there's no point speaking about the other gender. When men speak to them, men will tell them. When I speak to women, I speak to women. I don't speak about men. So I never speak about, the faults of men, what about men, because I'm not speaking to men. Understand? Yeah, so it's like, there was once, someone told me that they had a meeting with the teachers in Darul Zahra, right? And then the teachers, they were saying now about the faults and whatsoever, they're putting all the faults. Right? At end of the academic year, I had to do a post-mortem. And then some of the teachers were saying, but some of the students, they are what and what, or some of the mothers, they are what and what. And then the principal was like, am I talking to the teachers or to the students? Who am I talking to? Right? Of course, if the faults, I know there are faults with students and with the mothers, but I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to the teachers. That's why I'm talking about your faults. Right? So I'm not going to talk about the faults of the students and the mothers. When I talk to them, then I talk about their faults. When I talk to you, I'll talk about your faults. Yeah, that's why they don't actually. So it's not to open up. So people begin to blame each other. Right? So that is the way of the ulama. When they speak to a people, they speak to them and what they can do and what their faults are. But they won't speak about the faults of other people and what other people can do, because there's no point doing that. And when I say, these people, they should be that way, or they should be that way, or they should be that way. But I'm not speaking to them. In a way, right? You understand? Right, so, yeah. That's what I learned. This is one of the strongest lessons I learned when I was in Darim. That whoever you speak to, you just speak to them. So you don't speak about those who are not here. And you don't try to advise those who are not here. So I don't go around saying, if I have a class with women, I won't say, your husbands should be. I won't say that. Because how many of you will go home to your husband and say, hey, you know what? You won. Right. So all I will ever say is, you should be. That's all I ever do. Because That's why I never. It's not that I'm against women and I'm for men. I'm a woman myself, right? But it's just that there's no benefit in talking about what they should be or what's their sin or what's on them. I'm not talking to them, right? When the men talk to the men, when the ulama talk to the men, and the habaib they do a lot of bashing when they talk to the men. They do tegur a lot. They already reprimand a lot to the men when they talk to the men. I'm talking to them. I'm talking to you guys. So you all, don't raise your voice. Don't be rude. Don't be sarcastic. Even sarcasm, right? It's not something that is permissible in Islam. Sarcasm, right? You will not find any hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam whereby there is sarcasm. Not a single one. You won't find. So this entire thing about sinde, like about in our culture, right? It's not found in the Sunnah. It's not It's not found in the Sunnah. Sarcasm, mocking, making fun, nothing of this is the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which means that it's all not part of good character. It is not part of good character to do all of these things. Allah help us. Whenever I say all these things, I'm like, yeah, see lah. I have it a lot in myself. Like, but so you read it, you have to cleanse, because you keep hitting yourself. You need to cleanse. So here Allah says that He made for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, He is a perfect example. I'm going to finish this page. The character, actions, and conduct of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam thus serve as examples for His followers. There is no doubt that the method of teaching by means of action and deeds is the most powerful method of all, has the greatest impact on the soul, facilitates understanding and remembering, and is most likely to be followed and emulated, as opposed to teaching via mere words and explanations. Furthermore, teaching by action and deeds is the natural method of teaching, and was therefore the most apparent and striking teaching method of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's a lot to be said about this method, right, of teaching. And you see the words of Imam Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda, right, Sheikh Abu Fattah Abu Ghudda, his words himself, his entire paragraph, you could just highlight the whole thing and read it over and over and over again as to how important this method is, right? Remember that the tongue of the state is much clearer, much more eloquent than the tongue of the mouth. Right, so take care of how your state speaks, and you cannot lie with the tongue of your state. And you can't lie. You can lie with the tongue of your mouth, but you cannot lie with the tongue of your state, especially with those whom you live with. Right, you can't lie. Afterward, it will show. They know your real state. If you live with them, right, long enough. Right, so that's why the scholars, to really know your teachers, when you see them in their private zone, you see them much better than they are in their public zone. That means you see somehow their state is so much more pure in their private space. I'm going to read the footnotes a bit, then we're going to pause there. All right. Allama al-Hajwi said in his book Al-Fikr As-Sami' fi Tarikh Al-Fiqh Al-Islami, an example of practical explanation being more effective than verbal explanation is when the peace treaty of Hudaybiyah was signed between Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Quraysh. He ordered Sahabas radiallahu anhum to come out of the ihram and to slaughter their sacrificial animals. He said to them, go and slaughter your animals and then shave off your heads. They delayed in executing the order because they did not like the treaty and felt that fighting would be better. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to his wife Salama radiallahu anha and informed her of the delay in executing his order. She advised him to shave his head and slaughter his animal. First, because if they noticed him doing it, they would certainly follow. Rasulullah acted on her suggestion. When the Sahaba radiallahu anhum saw this, they rushed and slaughtered their animal and began shaving their heads. Each other's heads, right? They almost killed each other due to rushing to fulfill the order of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This incident illustrates the high level of intellect of Salama radiallahu anha, as she understood that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum felt it difficult to come out of the ihram before having completed the rites of the minor pilgrimage, the Umrah. She also knew that the setting of an example was more effective than verbal instruction. The matter was settled, and as she had understood it, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with her. Right? This is the situation in the seerah, whereby this is one of the situations whereby the actions of Rasulullah spoke louder than his words. So basically, they were not going to go for Umrah. They thought they were going for Umrah. They were not going for Umrah. And Rasulullah said to them, you know what? I have signed a treaty with the Quraysh. We are not going in for Umrah. We're going to go back. Next year, we're going to come. And he said to them, sacrifice your animals and shave your heads. All of them sat where they were, didn't do anything. So he got upset, he went into the tent. And the reason why the Sahaba did not move from their position was not that they were disobedient to Rasulullah at all. They were not disobedient, right? But what they were doing was that they were hoping that he would change his mind. They were hoping. Right? They were hoping a wahi would come down. They were hoping something would happen whereby we don't have to take about ihram. Right? So they were waiting for that really, is this really happening? Are we really not doing our umrah? Right? So they were just hoping that something would happen, right, that would allow them to do their umrah. So they were not at all being disobedient, but they were just hoping that he would change his mind about this, right? So when his wife advised him, you do it first and they will follow you. So when he took off his ihram and he shaved his head and his animal, so they saw that if he took off his ihram, then there is no chance of us going to do umrah at all. There's no chance. Which is why they took off the ihram. So it was not in any way that they were reluctant to obey Rasulullah, right? But they were just hoping, right, that there could be a way through, right, into Mecca. Right? So when he took it off, they took it off straight away. This is one of the clear examples of Rasul doing this. But you will see throughout his life, right, good character being shown in his person, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And then the Sahaba would emulate this, right, later on in their lives. Right, so after the death of Rasulullah, you see the Sahaba emulate exactly as Rasulullah has done. Right, so I'll pause there. Right, we're still on our first method. The first method lasts for quite some time. You see, there up to there. Right, let me see. There's a lot to be said. It's the most important method in teaching your character. It's nothing that you cannot at all belittle this. Which is why the next book we're going to do is about character, right? Because we're going to go deep into the first method of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha. أن الله يرزقنا علما نافعا والخالص مقبول التعليم دلالة على الهدى ويسر بلقب النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم والأرواح معالمين مشايخنا وذوي الحقد علينا وإلى حضرة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. الفاتحة. Yeah. Allahumma kama hasanta khalqi fahsin khulqi. There is. No lah, just say. Right. And there's a dua, the one I taught before. Allahumma ij'al Masya Muhammad sirri khairan min alaniyati waj'al alaniyati salihah. Make my inward better than my outward, and make my outward righteous. That also speaks about akhlaq. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal asr. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam.